Oh, when did I get interested in revolutionary history? So I know the exact classes at Yale that made me want to become a history major and then wanted to make me study the revolution. But then it was a long time before I got to this topic specifically, and I don't want to go through this is my whole life. But I took John Demos's class on the colonial period of American history when I was a sophomore, and up to that point I wasn't sure I wanted to be a history major at all. But he had us dive into the Essex County, Massachusetts court records from the 17th century, and all you were given was either a topic or a person, and you just had to kind of make up a paper about it. And so my topic was theft, and so I was looking at thieves in early Massachusetts and constructing it together from the original, not the original court records, but a reproduction of the court records, and I was like, this is fascinating. I totally want to be a history major now. So that was what got me into that. And then studying the Revolution, I was reading, I don't know if any of you know Alfred Young, a scholar of the Revolution. He wrote a book, another book on the Tea Party called The Shoemaker and the Tea Party, about this poor Boston shoemaker in Boston named George Robert Twelves Hughes. He was a very little guy, and there's a statue of him actually at the old State House Museum in Boston. A portrait of it, a portrait and a statue. The portrait was from life. The statue is kind of made up. So there were two accounts of his life published in the 19th century, and Al Young wrote about this, and he had this line in there that said, unlike Hughes's brother, or unlike Ebenezer McIntosh, who is a famous, who became a famous crowd leader in Boston, Hughes, before the Revolutionary era, wasn't involved in a lot of civic organizations. He wasn't a firefighter or anything like that. And I said, well, wait, what did it mean if you were a volunteer firefighter during the Revolutionary era? And that became a very bad junior paper, but then I worked on it a little more, and it became a pretty nice senior thesis, which I then was able to publish in graduate school. So that was what got me interested in what it meant to be civically engaged in the cities in the years leading up to the Revolution, and everything else kind of followed on from there one way or another. And so it was natural that I would end up in the Tea Party and answering questions like the gentleman was asking me about the taverns and things like that. So that was my journey into this stuff. And I like the 18th century because it's a time when people are thinking about the Enlightenment and slavery and revolution, and it's not so little records that like you could make your whole career based on like finding something on a wall buried beneath the sea, but it's also not something where like all of a sudden there's this mountain of stuff because from the State Department in the 1950s where you could spend like an entire year and maybe get through like a week's worth of material. So I find that the 18th century is kind of the happy medium in between. Yes, sir.